Let me ask you something. Why is it that two people can stand at the same starting line with the same skills, the same opportunities, the same resources, yet one rises while the other stays stuck? It's not talent. It's not luck. And it's definitely not intelligence. It's what they believe and what they focus on every single day. Because the truth is, success is not created on the outside first. It's created on the inside. And when faith and focus come together, everything changes. Faith is not something you wait for. And it's not something that magically appears when conditions are perfect. Faith is a decision. It's the moment you decide to believe before the evidence shows up. Because if you wait for proof, you'll wait forever. Most people say, once I see results, then I'll believe. But the people who actually succeed flip that equation. They believe first, and the results follow. Think about it. Every major breakthrough in your life began with a belief that didn't yet have proof. Before you ever achieved something meaningful, you had to decide it was possible. You didn't know how it would happen. You didn't have guarantees. You didn't have certainty. What you had was faith, the willingness to move forward despite uncertainty. Faith doesn't mean you don't feel fear. Faith means you act anyway. Fear says, what if it doesn't work? Faith says, what if it does? Fear focuses on what could go wrong. Faith focuses on who you can become. And here's the truth most people miss. Your life moves in the direction of your strongest belief, not your loudest wish. When you have faith, your body language changes. Your tone changes. Your energy changes. You stop hesitating and you start deciding. You stop waiting for permission and you start taking ownership. Faith creates certainty, and certainty is powerful. When you're certain, people feel it. Opportunities respond to it. Momentum is attracted to it. But when faith is missing, everything feels heavier. Effort feels exhausting. Small obstacles feel overwhelming. One setback feels like a signal to quit. That's why faith isn't optional, it's foundational. Without it, talent goes unused, ideas stay trapped, and potential remains untapped. Faith is what allows you to stand in the middle of uncertainty and still take the next step. It's what allows you to fail without collapsing, to stumble without stopping. Faith says, this moment doesn't define me, my commitment does. And that belief alone can carry you through seasons where motivation disappears and results are delayed. And let's be clear, faith isn't blind optimism. It's not pretending challenges don't exist. Faith is knowing challenges exist and choosing to move forward anyway. It's saying, I may not control everything, but I control what this means and what I do next. That's personal power. Here's where most people get it wrong. They think faith is passive. They think believing means waiting. But real faith demands action. Faith without action is just hope. Faith with action becomes momentum. Every time you take action while uncertain, your faith grows stronger. Every time you keep going when it would be easier to stop, you reinforce your belief in yourself. And over time, something incredible happens. What once required courage becomes natural. What once felt uncomfortable becomes familiar. What once felt impossible becomes expected. That's how faith compounds. Not overnight. Not all at once, but step by step, decision by decision. Faith is also about identity. You don't just believe you can succeed. You believe that you are the kind of person who figures things out. You believe that setbacks are temporary. You believe that effort is never wasted. And when you see yourself that way, your standards rise. You no longer ask, can I do this? You ask, how do I do this? That shift changes everything. Because when faith becomes part of who you are, you stop negotiating with doubt. You stop entertaining excuses. You stop shrinking. Your goals to fit your comfort zone. Faith expands your vision and strengthens your resolve. It keeps you moving forward when results are invisible and progress feels slow. And that's the moment when success begins long before anyone else can see it, long before the numbers change, long before the world applauds. Faith is the decision that says, I'm moving forward whether I feel ready or not. Belief alone doesn't change your life. Belief must be directed. And that direction is called focus. Focus is the force that turns what you believe into what you experience. You can have all the faith in the world, but if your attention is scattered, your results will be scattered too. Focus is what gives faith traction. It's what transforms intention into impact. Right now, whether you realize it or not, your life is the result of what you focus on most consistently. Not what you think about once in a while, not what you wish for on good days, what you focus on daily. Because your brain is a goal-achieving machine. It moves you toward whatever you keep it locked onto. If you focus on what's missing, you'll find more reasons to feel lacking. If you focus on what's possible, your mind starts searching for ways forward. Focus is not about doing everything. It's about eliminating everything that doesn't matter. Most people feel overwhelmed, not because they have too much to do, but because they're focused on too many things at once. Their energy leaks everywhere, and nothing gets the full force of their commitment. But the moment you decide what matters most and give it your full attention, your effectiveness multiplies. Think about the times in your life when you made real progress. You weren't multitasking, you weren't distracted, you were locked in, fully present, fully engaged. That's focus. And when focus is paired with faith, action becomes powerful. instead of exhausting. Focus also determines how you interpret your experiences. Two people can face the same challenge. One sees it as proof they're failing, the other sees it as feedback. The difference isn't the challenge, it's where they focus. Focuses on limitation, the other focuses on learning, and the one who focuses on learning always grows stronger. Here's something most people don't realize. Focus is a skill, not a personality trait. You don't have it or not, you train it. Every time you bring your attention back to what matters, you strengthen it. Every time you refuse to be pulled into distractions, drama, or doubt, you sharpen it. And the stronger your focus becomes, the faster your results show up. Focus also protects your faith, because doubt grows in unfocused minds. When your attention drifts, fear creeps in. When you constantly look at everything that could go wrong, belief weakens. But when you narrow your focus to the next step, the next action you can control, faith stays alive. Momentum builds. Confidence grows. And let's be honest, focus in today's world takes discipline. Everything is competing for your attention. Notifications, opinions, noise, comparison. If you don't decide in advance what you're going to focus on, the world will decide for you. And the world will pull you toward urgency instead of importance, reaction instead of intention. Focused action repeated daily is what creates extraordinary outcomes. Not giant bursts of effort once in a while, but consistent execution aligned with a clear target. When your focus is clear, your actions become simple. You stop overthinking, you stop hesitating, you start moving. Focus also creates emotional strength. When you're focused, you don't get derailed by every mood or setback. You understand that emotions are temporary, but commitments are permanent. You stay on course even when motivation dips, because your attention is anchored to your purpose, not your feelings. And here's the real power of focus. It compounds. One focused day leads to another. One aligned decision leads to clarity. Over time, what once felt difficult becomes automatic. You build trust with yourself. You prove to yourself that you follow through. And that proof strengthens your belief even more. This is how faith becomes results. Faith gives you the courage to begin. Focus gives you the discipline to continue. Faith says, this matters. Focus says, this is what I do next. Together, they eliminate confusion and replace it with certainty. So the question isn't whether you have potential. The question is where your attention is going. Because whatever you consistently focus on is exactly what you're training your life to become. And when your focus locks onto what truly matters, success stops being accidental and starts becoming inevitable. Most people underestimate just how powerful their attention really is. They think success is about time or effort or circumstances, but attention is the real currency. Whatever you consistently give your attention to begins to shape your emotions, your decisions, and ultimately your results. Where your attention goes, your energy flows. And whatever your energy flows into grows. Think about it. When you focus on stress, your body tightens, your breathing shortens, your creativity shuts down. But when you focus on possibility, something shifts. Your posture changes. Your mind opens. You start seeing options you couldn't see before. The situation hasn't changed, your focus has. And that change alone can transform outcomes. Your energy is limited. You only have so much of it each day. So if you spend it worrying, replaying the past, or comparing yourself to others, you drain the very fuel you need to move forward. But when you intentionally direct your attention towards solutions, progress, and growth, your energy becomes productive. It starts working for you instead of against you. This is why two people can face the same obstacle and walk away with completely different results. One pours attention into frustration, blame, and self-doubt. Their energy drops, their actions shrink, and their world gets smaller. The other pours attention into learning, adapting, and taking responsibility. Their energy rises, their actions expand, and new doors begin to open. Same challenge, different focus, different life. Attention also determines what you reinforce emotionally. Every thought you dwell on strengthens a neural pathway. The more you focus on something, the easier it becomes to focus on it again. That's how patterns form, both empowering and limiting ones. If you repeatedly focus on what's wrong, your mind becomes trained to find problems. If you repeatedly focus on what you can control, your mind becomes trained to find progress. And here's the part that most people miss: attention is a choice. You may not control what shows up in your life, but you always control what you dwell on. You decide whether a setback becomes a stopping point or a turning point. You decide whether a delay becomes a discouragement or a training ground. When you direct your attention with intention, your energy aligns, your actions become more effective. You're no longer reacting, you're creating. You stop wasting emotional energy on things that don't move you forward, and you start investing it in actions that build momentum. Attention also amplifies faith. When you focus on past failures, faith weakens. When you focus on progress, even small progress, faith strengthens. Momentum isn't built by giant leaps alone. It's built by noticing wins, reinforcing effort, and acknowledging growth. What you focus on emotionally determines whether you feel defeated or driven. This is why daily focus matters so much, not once in a while, not when it's convenient, every day, because success isn't built in dramatic moments, it's built in the quiet decision about what you choose to give your attention to when no one is watching. Those choices shape your emotional state, and your emotional state shapes your actions. Energy follows emotion. When your focus creates empowering emotions, you move faster, think clearer, and recover quicker. When your focus creates disempowering emotions, everything feels harder than it needs to be. Same effort, different outcome. And let's be real, attention is under attack. Distractions are everywhere. Noise is constant. If you don't protect your focus, it will be hijacked by urgency, negativity, and comparison. And once your attention is scattered, your energy gets diluted. You're busy, but you're not effective. Active, but not progressing. But when you learn to guide your attention deliberately, everything changes. You reclaim your power. You decide what matters. You stop feeding distractions and start fueling direction. And the more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. Your attention is the steering wheel of your life. Wherever you turn it, that's where you go. Direct it toward growth, and growth accelerates. Direct it toward fear, and fear expands. The choice is always yours. And when you consciously place your attention on what moves you forward, your energy aligns, your actions sharpen, and success begins to grow with unstoppable force. Doubt shows up for everyone. It doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you're unqualified. It doesn't mean you're on the wrong path. It means you're stretching beyond what's familiar. But the difference between people who break through and people who back down is not the absence of doubt, it's the presence of faith. Doubt weakens effort because it divides your energy. Faith strengthens persistence because it unifies your commitment. When doubt takes over, your actions change immediately. You hesitate. You second guess. You slow down. You start looking for exits instead of solutions. Even simple tasks feel heavier because part of you is pulling forward while another part is holding back. That inner conflict drains energy faster than any external obstacle ever could. Faith, on the other hand, creates alignment. When you believe deeply enough, your thoughts, emotions, and actions start pulling in the same direction. You move with purpose instead of pressure. You take action not because you feel forced, but because you feel committed. That alignment is what fuels persistence, the ability to keep going long after excitement fades. Most people don't quit because they're incapable. They quit because doubt convinces them that effort won't pay off. It whispers, why keep trying? What if this doesn't matter? What if you fail again? And when you listen to those questions, your effort weakens. Not all at once, but gradually. You show up with less intensity. You cut corners. You delay decisions. And over time, results fade not because you lacked ability, but because doubt diluted your persistence. Faith interrupts that pattern. Faith doesn't argue with doubt, it overrides it. It says, I'm moving forward regardless of how I feel today. It shifts your focus from outcome to commitment, from instant results to long-term growth, from comfort to character. Persistence is not about willpower alone. Willpower runs out. Persistence is about meaning. When you have faith in why you're doing something, you don't need constant motivation. You don't need perfect conditions. You keep showing up because quitting would cost you more than continuing. This is why faith strengthens resilience. When setbacks happen, and faith reframes them. Instead of seeing failure as a verdict, you see it as feedback. Instead of seeing delay as denial, you see it as preparation. That mindset keeps effort alive even when results are slow. Doubt magnifies difficulty. Faith minimizes it. Not by pretending challenges don't exist, but by changing how you respond to them. When faith is present, obstacles become problems to solve, not signals to stop. You stay in motion, you adapt, you adjust, and that continued motion is what eventually creates breakthroughs. Think about the moments in your life when you were most persistent. It wasn't when everything was easy. It was when you believed what you were doing mattered. That belief gave you strength you didn't know you had. It helped you push through fatigue, uncertainty, and resistance. Faith gave your effort purpose, and purpose fuels endurance. Here's something critical to understand. Effort fueled by doubt is inconsistent. Some days you push, some days you pull back. You're always negotiating with yourself. But effort fueled by faith is steady. It may not always be intense, but it's reliable. And reliability over time always outperforms intensity that comes and goes. Faith also changes how you talk to yourself. When doubt is loud, your inner dialogue becomes critical and harsh. You replay mistakes. You question your worth. That inner noise makes persistence harder because you're fighting yourself while trying to move forward. Faith quiets that noise. It replaces self-attack with self-leadership. Instead of asking, what's wrong with me, you ask, what's the next step? And that question keeps you moving. Persistence doesn't mean never feeling tired. It means not letting tiredness decide your direction. It doesn't mean never questioning. It means not letting questions paralyze you. Faith gives you the ability to keep taking the next step even when clarity is incomplete. And over time, something powerful happens. Every time you persist despite doubt, your confidence grows. You start trusting yourself more, not because everything works out, but because you prove to yourself that you don't quit on yourself. That trust becomes a foundation. And once that foundation is built, effort no longer feels fragile. Doubt weakens effort because it fractures belief. Faith strengthens persistence because it anchors identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries and start seeing yourself as someone who finishes, someone who figures it out, someone who stays in the game. And when persistence becomes part of who you are, a success stops being a question of if and becomes only a matter of when. Most people overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what they can do in a year. They chase big moments, dramatic breakthroughs, instant results. But real success doesn't come from intensity once in a while. It comes from focused action repeated daily. That's how momentum is built. That's how confidence is earned. And that's how ordinary effort compounds into extraordinary outcomes. Focused action means you don't just stay busy, you stay aligned. You know what matters most. And you take action in that direction even when it feels small, especially when it feels small. Because success doesn't respond to what you do occasionally, it responds to what you do consistently. One action may not seem like much, but repeated day after day, it creates a force that's impossible to stop. Think about compound interest. At first, the growth looks slow, almost invisible. But over time, the curve bends, and suddenly, what seemed insignificant becomes unstoppable. Success works the same way. The first week of disciplined action feels like effort. The first month feels uncertain, but somewhere along the way, momentum takes over. Results start stacking, confidence rises, and the work that once required discipline begins to feel natural. Focused action also eliminates overwhelm. When you commit to daily progress, you stop trying to solve your entire future at once. You focus on the next step, the next conversation, the next habit, the next improvement. That focus keeps you moving forward without burning out. You're no longer waiting for motivation, you're building reliability. This is where faith and focus intersect in the real world. Faith gives you the belief that your actions matter, even when results are delayed. Focus ensures those actions are aimed in the right direction. Without focus, effort gets wasted. Without faith, effort gets abandoned. But together, they create compounding power. Daily action also rewires your identity. Every time you do what you said you would do, you send a signal to yourself, I can be trusted, and that trust is priceless. It changes how you see yourself. You stop identifying as someone who hopes and start identifying as someone who follows through. And once that identity shifts, behavior becomes easier. Consistency builds confidence faster than success ever could. Success comes after consistency, not before it. Most people wait to feel confident before they act. But confidence is the reward of action, not the requirement. When you show up every day, even imperfectly, confidence grows quietly in the background. Focused daily action also sharpens your decision making. The more you act, the more feedback you receive. The more feedback you receive, the faster you improve. You stop guessing and start learning. You don't need to be perfect, you need to be present. Improvement happens through engagement, not contemplation. And here's the truth, small actions done consistently beat massive actions done inconsistently every time. One workout doesn't change a body. One focused work session doesn't build a career. One conversation doesn't transform a relationship. But repeated actions do. They stack. They multiply. They create results that look sudden from the outside but are built slowly from the inside. Daily focus also protects you from emotional swings. Some days you'll feel motivated, some days you won't. But when action becomes a habit, emotion loses its power to control your progress. You act because it's who you are, not because you feel like it. That's mastery. This is why routines matter, not as rigid rules, but as anchors. Anchors keep you steady when conditions change. They ensure progress continues even when life gets chaotic. When your actions are anchored to purpose, they don't depend on mood or circumstance. And let's be honest, consistency isn't glamorous. It doesn't get applause. It doesn't feel exciting most of the time. But it's unstoppable. It's the quiet force behind every great achievement. The people who win aren't the ones who feel inspired every day. They're the ones who act every day. Over time, focused daily action creates a compounding effect not just in results, but in belief. Each small win reinforces faith. Each completed action strengthens focus. You build momentum internally before it ever shows externally. And when it does show, it looks like overnight success to everyone else. This is how success multiplies. Not through pressure, but through practice. Not through bursts, but through building. Not through waiting for the perfect moment, but through committing to daily progress. You don't need to do everything today. You need to do the right thing today and then do it again tomorrow. Because when focused action becomes a daily standard, success stops being something you chase and starts becoming something you create. Obstacles are not signs that you're failing, they're signals that you're growing. Every meaningful path has resistance built into it, not to stop you, but to shape you. And the way you experience obstacles has everything to do with the faith you carry and the focus you apply. When faith fuels focus, obstacles stop looking like walls and start revealing themselves as stepping stones. Most people see an obstacle and immediately ask, Why is this happening to me? That question drains power. It pulls attention toward frustration, toward blame, toward helplessness. But when faith is present, the question changes. It becomes, what is this trying to teach me? Or how can this make me stronger? That shift alone transforms resistance into resource. Obstacles are tests of commitment. They show up right after you decide to grow, right after you choose a bigger vision, right after you step outside your comfort zone. That's not coincidence, that's confirmation. Growth demands expansion. And expansion always meets friction. Faith reminds you that friction doesn't mean stop, it means adjust and continue. Focus is what keeps you moving when the path gets unclear. Without focus, obstacles feel overwhelming because you try to solve everything at once. You look at the whole mountain instead of the next step. But focused faith says, I don't need the entire solution, I just need the next move. And that next move is always available if you're willing to look for it. Obstacles become stepping stones when you stay engaged instead of emotional. Emotion says, this isn't fair. Focus says, this is feedback. Emotion says, I can't do this. Faith says, I'll find a way. One response drains energy. The other builds strength. Every obstacle contains information. It shows you what needs to be refined, what skills must be developed, what mindset needs upgrading, but you only access that information when you stay present and committed. When you quit, you lose the lesson. When you persist, you gain wisdom, and wisdom compounds faster than talent ever could. Think about this, everything you're capable of today was once an obstacle you had to overcome. There was a time when what now feels natural felt impossible. You didn't remove the obstacle by avoiding it. You removed it by stepping through it. And each time you did, your capacity expanded. Faith keeps you from personalizing setbacks. You stop seeing obstacles as judgments about your worth and start seeing them as part of the process. You understand that delay is not denial. Resistance is not rejection. It's refinement. Focus ensures that obstacles don't distract you from your purpose. When challenges arise, unfocused people spiral. They replay the problem. They magnify the difficulty. Focused people stay anchored to outcome. They ask what's required now, and they take action. That action, however small, keeps momentum alive. Momentum is critical because stagnation is where doubt grows. When you stop moving, fear fills the space. But when you stay in motion, even slowly, confidence returns. Faith feeds focus. Focus feeds action, and action turns obstacles into progress. Obstacles also build emotional strength. They teach patience, discipline, adaptability. They strip away entitlement and replace it with resilience. And resilience is what carries you through seasons where results lag behind effort. Without obstacles, strength never develops. Without resistance, confidence remains fragile. Here's the real shift when faith and focus are aligned. You stop asking how to avoid obstacles and start asking how to use them. You begin to see that every challenge is preparing you for a level of success you're not yet equipped to handle. The obstacle is the training ground. And the more you respond this way, the more powerful you become. You don't panic as easily. You don't collapse under pressure. You trust yourself. You trust the process. You know that no matter what shows up, you will respond, not retreat. This is how leaders are formed. Not in comfort, but in challenge. Not when everything works, but when things don't, and you stay committed anyway. Faith keeps your vision alive. Focus keeps your feet moving. Together they transform resistance into readiness. Eventually, something remarkable happens. The obstacles that once intimidated you no longer shake you. You've faced enough resistance to know you'll get through it. You've built evidence through experience. And that evidence becomes unshakable belief. At that point, obstacles lose their power to stop you because you understand they were never there to stop you in the first place. They were there to raise you.